Hey, Shalom, Mr. Brother Abaya back here again. Before I get started, like always, I want to give all praises and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shah, Bahashem, Rachahakodash. Double honors to my teachers, the elder apostles of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the hopeful elect. One thing that people commonly forget is that the Bible is a historical book. All right, there's historical figures within the Bible, mentioned within the Bible. And that's what makes the Bible so powerful, is that not only is it, a book that contains prophecies, but it's backed up by history. And, in this video, I just want to do a quick run through of some of the Roman emperors that are mentioned in the scriptures and just give a little back history. All right, people are familiar with Pontius Pilate. He's looked at as like the main antagonist within the story in the New Testament when it comes to the crucifixion of our Lord Hamashiach Yahushua, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus. But Pontius Pilate was just the governor of Judea. He wasn't the emperor of Rome. So you want to go into the Caesars, the actual emperors. Here this reads, it says, Roman emperors in the New Testament. Several Roman emperors are mentioned in the New Testament, although not all of them are named in the text. Okay. August Octavian Caesar. All right. This emperor, he's the reason why you have a month called August. All right. Octavian Augustus Caesar. It says Caesar Augustus was the Roman emperor at the time of Yahushua's birth. In or around about 6 BC, Luke tells us at that time Augustus Caesar sent an order that all people in the countries under Roman rule must list their names in a register. All right, that's nothing new. Okay, the scriptures speak about how you're not supposed to number the people. That goes against the law of the Most High, trying to number his creation. But Esau, the so-called white man, he likes to do what is called censuses. Right, even in today's time, if they send a census to your house, you have to name how many people live with you. It's actually illegal if you don't do it. You have to, if that gets sent to you, you have to abide by the law and actually name how many people live with you. So that's basically what Augustus did here under Roman rule. Must list their names in a register, the census of the people. So when we go to Luke chapter 2, verse 1, it mentions Octavian Augustus. Let's go there. Luke 2 and 1. And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. Right? Notice it says all the world because he was the emperor. He was Caesar at that time during Rome's rulership. And you look at America today, the revised Roman Empire, which carries a lot of the governmental policies and historical ways of ancient Rome. You look at Washington, D.C., the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, all goes back to Rome. You have Caesars, you have presidents, and you have taxes, all right? Verse 2, it says, and this taxing was first made when Cyrenius was governor of Syria, and all went to be taxed, everyone into his own city, all right? Just like today, everybody gets taxed. Let me see. Oh, yeah, let's continue reading a little bit. Verse 4, and Joseph also went up from Galilee out of the city of Nazareth into Judea unto the city of David. Salah. Unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, because he was of the house and lineage of David. You know, it says to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. So Yahweh's parents had to deal with taxes, man, taxation. Yeah, let's go back. So here we have Octavian was the adopted son of Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar is what you would call the first official solo emperor of Rome, right? That's why you have the month of July. It's named after Julius Caesar. But he was he came into fruition after, the triumvirate, Pompey, Mark Antony. It says Julius Caesar, who had been assassinated in 44 BC, he became the undisputed and sole emperor after defeating Mark Antony, after whom the Antonia fortress in Jerusalem was named, and Cleopatra, the queen of Egypt, at the maritime battle of Actium in 31 BC. Yeah, because Pompey was already killed. He was killed before Mark Antony, which left Julius Caesar. So Octavian Augustus was the emperor of Rome when Yahushua was born. Okay, Luke chapter 2 tells us that. Verse 27. So when you read about, Herod sent out men to kill off the firstborns of the nation because he had the prophecy of, a savior coming. You got to think, that's why, it talks about Judea and the people. The emperor of Rome really wasn't concerned with these, so-called messiahs or, people who believed that, prophecies were coming of a messiah they had, they were busy ruling, the world at the time, but the people they set up in certain jurisdictions in certain areas, such as governors and procurators and, certain government factions that set up over certain regions, they had more of an on-hands experience of what was going on. So if you had a governor like Pontius Pilate, and then he set up, you got the Herodian family under him, they're a little more close hands-on with what was going on in Judea, all right? Not necessarily the emperor of Rome. Let's continue to read. It says, in 27 BC, Octavian was honored by the Roman Senate with the title Augustus, meaning revered or more than human. When Herod the Great built a new port city on the site of Strato's Tower in 21 BC, he named it Caesarea Maritima in honor of Caesar Augustus. Paul was held for 2 years at Herod's palace in Caesarea between 57 and 59 AD. See Acts 23-24. So, yeah, this is basically where Paul was held. Okay. All right, let's go to Tiberius. Which I believe Tiberius was the emperor when Yahushua actually started his ministry at the age of 30. And I actually believe he was the emperor when Yahushua was crucified. But anyways, let's read. It says, when Augustus died in 14 AD, he was succeeded by his son Tiberius. Luke tells us that John the Baptist began preaching during the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar in 26-27 AD. See Luke. So let's go to Luke, the 3rd chapter, which mentions Tiberius. Luke 3:1. Now in the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar, Pontius Pilate being governor of Judea. See, he was just governor of that region of Judea. And you got to remember, Rome ruled more than just, Israel. It says, and Herod being tetrarch of Galilee, um, and his brother Philip, tetrarch of Iturea, and of the region of Trachonitis, and Lysanias, the tetrarch of Abilene. Yeah, so, this is given the order of the government. You have the emperor of Rome, you have the governor of Judea, and then you have the tetrarchs, all right? Which is kind of like, how do you say it? It would probably be like a mayor, like a mayor today. You got your governor of your state, but then you got your mayors and your little government officials and whatnot. But yeah, this mentions Tiberius in Luke the 3rd chapter. Okay, it says, where am I at? Okay, Herod Antipas, who imprisoned and beheaded John the Baptist in 28 AD for criticizing his marriage, named his new capital Tiberias in honor of Tiberius. Let me see what this map says. Okay. It says Tiberius was followed in 37 AD by his great-nephew Gaius, called Caligula, because of his little boots he wore as a child. Caligula was popular at first, but after an illness upset his mental stability, he embarked on a reign of terror. The scriptures don't really name Caligula by name, but you can, when you go into Thessalonians and it speaks about the son of perdition, around that time Caligula was ruling, because he came right after Tiberius. Claudius, it says he was succeeded in 41 AD by his uncle Claudius, who invaded Britain in 43 AD. Claudius was the emperor in 44 AD at the time of the famine that prompted Saul and Barnabas to take a gift from the church in Antioch to the Christians in Jerusalem. So Claudius was the emperor during the time of Saul and Barnabas. Acts 11:27, let's get that. Says, and in these days came prophets from Jerusalem unto Antioch, and there stood up one of them named Agabus, and signified by the Spirit that there should be a great dearth, famine, throughout all the world, which came to pass in the days of Claudius Caesar. So there you go. Then the disciples, every man according to his ability, determined to send relief unto the brethren which dwelt in Judea, which also they did, and sent it to the elders by the hands of Barnabas and Saul. So there you go. It says, in 49 AD, Claudius expelled all the Jews from Rome, according to Roman historian Tacitus. This was because the Jews were already fighting about Christos, a reference to the ongoing conflict between Jewish Christians such as Aquila and Priscilla. They were always fighting about Christos. Let's see. Nero. It says Claudius was followed by his 17-year-old stepson Nero in 54 AD. Paul appealed to Emperor Nero in 57 AD. See Acts 25 and 11. Let's go there. See, this is a historical book, man. They don't like to go into the history because it proves that the Bible is true. And for you niggas that do read the Bible, you don't go into the history, so you don't, if you don't know your history, you don't know where you're going. Acts chapter 25, verse 11, it says, "For if I be an offender or have committed anything worthy of death, I refuse not to die. But if there be none of these things whereof these accuse me, no man may deliver me unto them. I appeal unto Caesar." So yeah, Caesar at that time was Nero. It says Nero later became a brutal psychopath, blaming Christians for the Great Fire of Rome in 64 AD and sending them to their death in the amphitheater. Both Paul and Peter were executed by Nero shortly after the outbreak of the Romano-Jewish War in 66 AD, when anti-Jew frenzy was at its height. So Paul and Peter were executed, under Nero's rule. Vespasian. So basically, after Yahushua's crucifixion, the word spread so much and it became such a big thing that then it started to become a issue for the emperors of Rome. During Yahushua's time, the emperor wasn't really concerned with Yahushua and John the Baptist. That was more of a governor of Rome, the Herod family. They were dealing with that. The Sadducees and Pharisees that were set up, they were dealing with that. But after Yahushua's great sacrifice, the word spread so much that it reached the emperor of Rome. It became a problem for the emperor of Rome. So they started, putting heavy persecution and bringing death upon any of the followers. Now Vespasian, it says Nero committed suicide in 68 AD, and after a year of 3 unsuccessful claimants, was succeeded by Vespasian, who returned from active service in Judea in 69 AD to take up the reins of power. We know about Titus and Vespasian. 10 years later, in 79 AD, Vespasian was succeeded by his son Titus, who destroyed the temple in Jerusalem at the end of the Jewish War in 70 AD, which led to the scattering of us going to Africa and living in Africa until the time of the transatlantic slave trade. Let's get that. Let's see. Yeah, Luke chapter 21, verse 20. This is the time of Titus destroying the temple. It says, "And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh." Anytime it mentions the desolation, it has to do with the temple, some type of destruction happening to the temple. Verse 21, "Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter therein too. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled." Right? "But woe unto you that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days, for there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people." Yeah, because if you're a woman with a newborn baby, and you gotta flee through the desert or mountains and different terrains and lands, encounter different people, animals, going hungry, it's a very, very difficult time, to say the least. Here's the point, verse 24, "And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and they shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled." And even to this day, Jerusalem is trodden down of the Gentiles. You got Domitian. Titus died suddenly in 81 AD and was followed by his younger brother Domitian, who continued to persecute Christians because they wouldn't worship the Roman gods or sacrifice to the emperor, and were therefore considered to be godless atheists who would arouse the fury of the Roman gods. It was Domitian who ordered the exile of the Apostle John to the Aegean island of Patmos in 89 AD. Yeah. Revelation 1. Let's get that. Revelation 1, verse 9, it says, I, John, who also am your brother and companion in tribulation, and in the kingdom and patience of Hamashiach Yahushua, was in the isle that is called Patmos, for the word and the testimony of Hamashiach Yahushua. So he was sent there for his testimony. They wasn't trying to hear that word. They wanted us to worship their gods. Okay. It says Domitian was assassinated in 96 AD, and was followed by Nerva and Trajan, Nerva's adopted son. And this is when you get into the feathers spoken of in what? Esdras. Hadrian. It says Trajan was succeeded in 117 AD by Hadrian, who visited Britain in 122 AD and built the 76. That's pretty much it on that. I just wanted to go into the emperors that, emperors of Rome that have tying to the scriptures, that you can link with the scriptures. Lord willing, this edifying, straight to the point. Till the next time I say shalom.